Welcome to Unpacking the Track.
Today we are dissecting the glitch by hush density.
Just a quick note for new listeners, you are hearing voices generated by artificial intelligence.
That's right, digital avatars, but real human analysis, debate, and vibe.
Okay, let's get into this. It's not just a song, it's a diagnostic tool for a really sick culture.
See, and this is exactly why we have to balance each other out. You're looking for the puppet masters, and I'm over here I'm mentally opening a spreadsheet to categorize the practical takeaways for better living.
Oh, please. You probably have a spreadsheet for your feelings. Like row 4, column B, mild existential dread. Mitigate with herbal tea and a brisk walk.
Hey, if it works, it works. Efficiency isn't a crime.
You literally see the world in grid lines.
And you see a conspiracy in a coffee cup.
Hush density is doing something really clever here.
Very clever.
It's not just a vibe, it's a structured argument.
Yeah.
It's almost an academic essay disguised as conscious hip-hop.
It's a mirror. And what it's reflecting is it's ugly. It's reflecting us.
So let's jump right into the intro, because this is where the trap is set. We need to unpack what I'm calling the algorithm of extremes.
Let's look at the source lyrics then. The track opens with this really rhythmic, almost hypnotic listing. It goes, just scrolling, get it all, rise at 5, new yacht, give it all up, bare floor, ascetic, monk mode.
Stop right there. We have to pause on that first word. Scrolling.
Scrolling.
We gloss over that word like it's just a physical action, right? Like blinking or breathing.
It practically is at this point.
But in the context of this track, scrolling it's not just moving your thumb up a piece of glass. It's a state of modern hypnosis. It's a trance.
This is the delivery mechanism for the ideology.
Sure. No, it's way more than that. Think
Yeah.
about the mechanics of a slot machine. You pull the lever, you wait, you see if you win.
Right, the intermittent reinforcement.
Exactly. Scrolling is the exact same neurological loop. You swipe up, that's the lever pull. You wait a millisecond for the image to load. Is it a cute dog? Is it a war crime? Is it your ex looking incredibly happy?
Which is the worst outcome.
The worst. But you don't know. That uncertainty is what hooks the dopamine receptors. You are literally letting a machine dictate your reality at 15 frames per second.
That's why gambling is addictive.
Yeah.
But I think hush density isn't just critiquing the medium here. They are critiquing the message.
Yeah.
The track identifies two very distinct, very loud voices screaming in that feed.
Oh, and I call the first one the cult of more. This is the voice that drives me absolutely insane.
The rise at 5 crew.
You know the type. The grind sit mentality bros.
The hustle culture optimizers.
Mm-hmm.
The people who genuinely believe sleep is a biological design flaw.
It's not just optimization, though. It's pathology. It's this sick idea that if you are not maximizing every single second of your existence, you are fundamentally failing.
Yeah.
If you wake up at 5 a.m. to jump in a $10,000 ice bath and meditate, but you absolutely have to post an Instagram story about it with a timestamp before you've even brushed your teeth,
It defeats the purpose.
you are not productive. You are a narcissist who is severely sleep deprived.
That's a fair critique, though I do think there is some value in discipline. But the performance of productivity often takes way more time than the actual work.
It does.
It becomes a full-time job in itself.
And I fell for this, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not immune.
The great skeptic.
I did. I once followed this biohacker guru online. I won't name him, but he had these insane veins popping out of his forehead, and he was always yelling into his front-facing camera about mitochondrial efficiency. He claimed 4 hours of sleep was completely biologically sufficient if you took freezing cold showers and ate, I kid you not, raw liver.
Please tell me you didn't eat raw liver.
I was desperate. I felt like I was falling behind the curve, so yes, I tried it. I went to the local butcher, I bought the liver, I tried the schedule.
Did you achieve peak performance? Did you conquer the matrix?
By Wednesday, I wasn't efficient. I was actively hallucinating.
Wow.
I was standing in my kitchen at 4:30 in the morning, shivering because I just got out of an ice bath, holding a piece of raw organ meat, and I was pretty sure my coffee machine was judging my life choices.
The coffee machine.
The little red light on the espresso maker just looked like this glowing, judgmental eye. I wasn't a titan of industry. I was a nervous wreck with the shakes.
That sounds horrific. But it's also a classic example of survivorship bias. Just because that one specific guy can function on 4 hours or claims he does, doesn't mean your biology can handle it.
But that's what the feed sells you. It sells you this toxic idea that the only reason you aren't a billionaire is because you sleep too much and you ate cooked food.
See, and that's the cult of more. But hush density points out the other side of the coin too, which I actually think is just as dangerous.
Oh, absolutely.
arguably more insidious because it disguises itself as virtue. That's the cult of LS. The lyrics explicitly mention bare floor,
Yeah.
ascetic, monk mode.
Oh, yes. The beige brigade. The sad beige people with their sad beige walls.
Precisely. It's this modern idea that if you just throw away all your furniture and sleep on the hard floor, you suddenly achieve supreme enlightenment.
Right.
It's minimalism completely weaponized as a status symbol.
It's the TikTok monk aesthetic. Look at me, I own absolutely nothing. I am so vastly superior to you and your disgusting consumerist couch.
But let's look at it pragmatically for a second. I'm all for decluttering.
Yeah.
You know, I love a clean spreadsheet and I love a clean room.
We don't.
But selling your bed to be grounded is incredibly inefficient. It doesn't lead to a spiritual awakening. It leads to severe lumbar support issues and massive chiropractic bills.
It's performative deprivation.
I actually have a story about this exact thing. I know a guy, a total optimizer type, very smart, worked in tech. He decided he was way too attached to comfort.
Comfort is the enemy.
Exactly. He felt comfort was making him soft.
Yeah.
So he did the whole monk mode thing. He sold his beautiful bed. He sold his sofa. He literally slept on a thin yoga mat for 3 months to stay physically grounded to the earth.
And did he ascend to a higher plane of reality? Did he start levitating?
No, he completely wrecked his back. He developed a terrible sciatica issue. And here is the kicker, the absolute peak irony of it all.
Tell me.
The money he paid his chiropractor over the next 6 months to fix the spinal damage. The chiropractor used that money to put a down payment on a boat.
No way.
Yes way. So his performative minimalism literally funded someone else's luxury yacht. He didn't escape the system at all. He just fed it from a different angle.
That is poetic justice. That is absolutely delicious. But this actually brings us right to the synthesis. And this was the first real aha moment of the track for me.
Where they bring the two sides together.
Yeah. Because the track implies that the more crowd and the less crowd are just screaming different words into the same void.
It suggests they are fundamentally the same thing.
They are the same. It's like choosing between Coke and Coke Zero.
Right.
The taste is slightly different and maybe one has no calories, but the brand, the overarching corporate entity of the ego is exactly the same.
That's a really strong point.
Bruh.
Both of them require an audience.
Exactly.
If you engage in the cult of more, you absolutely need people to see your yacht. If you engage in the cult of less, you need people to see your empty room. Without the audience, neither identity works.
Exactly. My feed is literally 50%. How to make $1 million in dropshipping, and 50%. How to live in a rusty van and wash your clothes in a dirty river.
And the common denominator in both.
What is it?
You have to stop buying avocado toast.
Yes. The toast is the enemy of both the billionaire and the monk. The billionaire says invest that $12 in crypto. And the monk says, you don't need that sensory pleasure, you must suffer.
It really does seem to be the universal currency of bad financial advice. But this sets the stage beautifully for the first verse. The track moves from the external noise of the feed to the internal feeling of the chase.
Treadmills and empty rooms. Let's look at verse 1.
The lyrics here are, climbing a ladder that has no top rung, less is a contest. Loud silence, same shame.
Loud silence. I want to zoom in on that phrase. Loud silence. That is such a deeply specific texture.
It's an oxymoron on paper. What does that actually sound like to you?
It sounds like a dinner party where someone is aggressively bragging about how they don't own a TV.
Yes.
You know that silence? It's not peaceful, it's violent. It's a silence that is desperately trained to be heard by everyone in the room. Like, oh, you watch shows. I just stare at a blank white wall and think about the ethics of compost.
It's deafeningly arrogant.
Exactly.
It loops right back to that competitive nature. But let's look at the ladder with no top rung part. From a psychological and structural perspective, this is the classic hedonic treadmill.
The rat race.
It goes deeper than just the rat race. The hedonic treadmill, or hedonic adaptation, is a concept that was really solidified in a 1971 study by Brickman and Campbell. They studied lottery winners and accident victims.
Okay, lay the science on us.
So the general assumption is that if you win the lottery, your baseline happiness spikes and just stays up there forever.
Because you have infinite money.
Right. But the study found that after a relatively short period, usually about a year, the lottery winners weren't significantly happier than the control group. Their internal baseline for joy had completely shifted.
Because the luxury yacht just becomes the boring boat you take to get groceries.
Exactly. The dopamine hit wears off entirely. This is deeply rooted in our biology. It's called the prediction error. Your brain gives you a massive squirt of dopamine when you get something unexpectedly better than your current state.
Right.
But once you expect the yacht, you get zero dopamine from it. So you need a bigger yacht.
It's evolutionary, right? Because if our ancestors killed a mammoth and were just perfectly satisfied forever, they'd sit around and starve next winter. Evolution doesn't want you happy. It wants you hunting.
Correct. Total contentment is a survival disadvantage in the wild. But we aren't in the wild anymore. We are in a digital shopping mall.
Yeah.
So you're running on this treadmill, you're sweating, your heart is pounding, but the scenery never changes. You're just wearing out your very expensive sneakers.
But see, Hush Density applies this exact same logic to the less crowd, too. The victory song that will never be sung. Because you can never practically have zero enough.
Right. If you get rid of your TV, do you feel better?
Yeah.
Maybe for a week. Then you get rid of your couch. Then your bed. You are chasing the dopamine of subtraction, just like the rich guy chases the dopamine of addition.
I have a confession to make.
Oh.
And this is embarrassing. I really tried the minimalism thing, like real aggressive, intense minimalism. I read the books, I watched the documentaries with the sad piano music and the guys in the plain black t-shirts awkwardly hugging each other.
So you drank the Kool-Aid.
I drank it all, I got inspired, I went through my home office and I found the box.
Oh no, not the box.
The box of cables.
Every single human being has the box of cables.
It is the sacred archive of our technological history. It's just this massive, dusty tangle of SCART leads and VGA cables and weird, heavy power bricks for phones that haven't existed since 2009.
It is the absolute graveyard of connectivity.
Right, and I looked at this box and I said to myself, I am free. I don't need these. This is just heavy physical weight holding me back from my true spiritual potential.
So dramatic.
I threw them all out. Every single one. I drove to the recycling center and I dumped them. And I felt lighter. I felt pure. I felt like a completely new man.
I sense a very large but coming. A very expensive
Wait, 1 week. 1 single week later, I bought a specialized microphone for a field recording project I was doing. A really cool vintage piece of audio gear.
And let me guess.
It didn't come with a cable. It needed a mini USB. Not micro, not USB-C, mini. The really chunky, weird one from 2008.
And you had just thrown one away.
I had thrown away 3 of them.
That is painful.
I could literally see them in my mind's eye, sitting in the landfill just mocking me. I had to drive all the way to a specialized electronics store, sit in gridlock traffic, and pay $20 for a cable I technically owned 7 days ago.
That hurts. That physically hurts to hear.
Minimalism didn't buy me freedom, my friend. It cost me $20 in a massive traffic jam. That's not enlightenment. That's just incredibly bad logistics.
That is a fundamental failure of inventory management, plain and simple.
Thank you.
But I actually think there is a much deeper point here that we almost always miss when talking about minimalism. It highlights the massive privilege inherent in the whole movement.
Yes.
Minimalism has entirely become a rich person's hobby.
Say more about that. Because the minimalists always frame it as being so humble and grounded.
Well, think about it practically. If you are really struggling financially, having less isn't a neat stylistic choice. It's called poverty.
Wow. Yeah.
You keep that weird box of cables, not because you were some crazed hoarder, but because you might not genuinely have the $20 to replace it later if you need it.
It's insurance.
Exactly. The ability to just carelessly throw things away with the absolute confidence that you can just buy them again if you ever need them, that is the ultimate flex of modern wealth.
I never thought about it like that.
It's what economists call conspicuous consumption, but operating in reverse. You are loudly signaling to the world that you are so financially secure, you don't even need to hoard basic resources.
So the empty room is actually the most expensive room in the house?
Often, yes. I have another friend who got really heavily into OMAD, 1 meal a day. It's this intense intermittent fasting trend.
Spiritually light.
Spiritual light, he called it. He was doing it for pure mental clarity.
How did that go for him?
By 4 p.m., he wasn't spiritually light. He was actively homicidal.
Of course he was.
We went for a walk through the park, and a dirty city pigeon landed near us with a crust of bread. I swear to you, I saw him look at that pigeon, and for a split second, I genuinely thought he was going to fight the bird for the carb.
The primitive brain just completely took over.
Completely bypassed all logic. He wasn't enlightened. He was just intensely hungry. Hustle culture and diet culture are the exact same mechanic.
Yeah.
It's just like the game The Sims, but you forget to let your character use the bathroom because you're too busy grinding the logic skill to get a corporate promotion.
That is a terrifyingly accurate metaphor, and honestly, that leads us perfectly into the chorus, because if the more is a trap and the less is a trap, what is the actual alternative?
This is the core of the entire deep dive. This is the glitch.
Let's hear the lyrics again. It ain't the more, it ain't the less. It's seeing the code. Why is enough to some seen as so weak?
Seeing the code, that's the major pivot point of the track.
I want to stop there, because when Hush Densities says code, I really don't think they're just being poetic or abstract. I think they are literally talking about the economic operating system we live inside.
Go on. Unpack the code for me.
The entire system, modern capitalism, social media algorithms, massive marketing firms, it all runs on one single raw fuel source: dissatisfaction.
Right.
That is the coal burning in the furnace. If you are happy, you are a bug. You are a glitch in their software.
Because a perfectly happy person doesn't aggressively consume.
Exactly. If you wake up, look in the mirror, and say, I look great, my life is pretty good, have enough, the global economy shudders.
The stock market dips.
It tanks. You don't buy the expensive anti-aging cream because you aren't terrified of getting older. You don't buy the shady get-rich-quick course because you don't feel poor. You don't finance a brand new phone because yours works totally fine.
Contentment breaks the model.
Contentment is the only glitch that these marketing agencies cannot patch out.
That is a very cynical but highly likely accurate assessment. Modern marketing relies almost entirely on creating a void and then urgently selling you the expensive filler.
It's manufactured inadequacy.
But here's where I want to offer the practical solution, or at least the alternative that Hush Density hints at. The track asks, why is enough seen as so weak? I want to introduce a concept here that directly answers that. It's a Swedish term, Lagom.
Lagom. That sounds like a villain in a fantasy novel.
Hi.
Lord Lagom of the North demands your taxes.
No, it's a cultural philosophy. It's deeply key to Scandinavian life. It translates roughly to not too much, not too little, just right. It's the Goldilocks zone of existing.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here. Just right sounds incredibly boring.
Does it?
It sounds like settling. It sounds like giving up and accepting mediocrity. And I think that's exactly what the lyrics are getting at. We are deeply programmed, especially here in the West, to think average is failure. If you aren't absolutely crushing it, you're being crushed.
And that is the fundamental mathematical mistake. Lagom isn't about mediocrity at all. It's about sustainability.
Explain.
Think about it in strict engineering terms. You like cars, right?
I do. Love them.
If you run a high-performance engine at 100% capacity, redlining it constantly everywhere you go, what happens?
It blows a gasket. It melts the block.
Exactly. It fails catastrophically. But if you turn it off completely, it obviously does zero work. Lagom is running the engine at the optimal RPM, the torque peak, where it delivers maximum efficient power, but it never overheats.
Right.
It's the ultimate power move because it practically allows you to keep going forever without breaking down.
That's actually a really compelling reframe. So it's not about just lazily doing less. It's about doing the sustainable amount.
There is a related concept in Scandinavia called the law of Jonte, or Jonte law. It's this unspoken social code that basically says you are not to think you're anyone special.
See, now that sounds oppressive. Don't shine too bright, kid. Keep your head down.
It can definitely be interpreted that way, but the incredibly positive side of it is that it completely relieves the societal pressure to be extraordinary all the time. You don't have to be the absolute best in the world to be worthy of basic respect. You just have to be a contributing, functional part of the community. In practical human terms, Lagom is drinking enough beer to have fun and loosen up, but not enough to drunkenly text your ex at 2 a.m.
Okay, that I understand. But that is a very fine line to walk.
It is, but that is exactly where the skill lies. The more crowd wants to drink the entire keg just to prove to everyone they can afford it. The less crowd wants to ban alcohol entirely to prove how pure and disciplined they are.
And Lagom.
Lagom is having a really good pint, enjoying the complex flavor and going home to sleep in a comfortable bed.
I love the idea that if you are genuinely happy with your phone from 2018, you are technically a terrorist to the global economy.
You really are holding up progress.
Sir, step away from the iPhone 8. You are actively disrupting the quarterly earnings report.
In a way, yes. Asking how much is enough in our current hyper-accelerated society is like asking a high-performance GPU to just voluntarily stop drawing power. The hardware isn't built for moderation.
I had a moment exactly like this recently. I actually stopped looking at tech reviews. You know I'm a massive gearhead.
You are obsessed.
I always want the new camera, the new laptop. I check the benchmark specs. I watch the hour-long frame rate tests on YouTube. I went completely cold turkey for a year, no YouTube reviews at all, and you know what happened.
What, did all your old tech suddenly stop working?
No. My laptop, which I was absolutely convinced was sluggish and completely obsolete and actively holding back my creative potential, it suddenly felt totally fine.
Really?
Nothing changed in the physical hardware. The software didn't magically update to run faster. But my brain just completely stopped comparing it to a theoretical better version that existed out in the ether. It was a psychological overclock.
You effectively removed the perception latency.
Exactly. I realized the lag wasn't in the computer processor at all. It was entirely in my own dissatisfaction. I was constantly rendering a massive comparison that didn't even need to exist.
And this connects beautifully to verse 2. The lyrics shift focus slightly. They say, what if just living is the actual aim? Active stillness. Part you perform for perception.
Perform for perception. That line hurts. That line cuts so incredibly deep. That is the Instagram knife twisting right in the wound.
It really brings up the fundamental question of who you are actually living for. Are you the active protagonist of your own life, or are you just the cinematographer filming it for strangers?
Can we talk about video games for a second? Because I think there is a gaming term here that fits this dynamic perfectly.
I suppose we must. You know, I'm not much of a gamer.
In gaming specifically, in big RPGs, there is a very specific style of play called min-maxing. You know this concept.
I am vaguely familiar with it. It is the practice of aggressively optimizing a character's statistics to the absolute mathematical limit, often at the complete expense of versatility or actual fun.
Right. You dump all your skill points into pure strength and absolutely zero into charisma so you can hit harder, even if your character looks like a swamp goblin and literally can't talk to any NPCs.
Right.
You are playing the underlying spreadsheet. You are not playing the game. We have hardcore min-maxers walking around in real life.
Oh, absolutely we do. And I will freely admit I was one. I am a recovering min-maxer.
You, Mr. Pragmatist, Mr. Fay. Let's find the practical solution.
Especially me.
Yeah.
Because I deeply love data. I spent years trying to mathematically optimize my morning coffee routine.
Oh, no.
I fell so far down the rabbit hole. I bought the digital microscales. I bought the specialized burr grinder with the ceramic teeth. I bought the expensive gooseneck kettle with the variable temperature-controlled Bluetooth app.
You had an app for your kettle. A kettle needs Bluetooth.
I was weighing whole beans to the 10th of a gram. I was actively timing the exact bloom phase of the coffee grounds with a stopwatch. I was genuinely stressed out if the water was 240 degrees instead of 205.
Did it taste better? Be honest with me right now.
The first few times. Maybe slightly. But eventually the entire ritual just became a stressful task. It became a daily test I could fail before 8 a.m.
That sounds miserable.
I realized I didn't actually want perfect chemical extraction. I just wanted hot brown liquid and a chance to look out the kitchen window at the birds for 5 minutes. The aggressive optimization completely killed the joy of the morning.
You literally min-maxed the soul right out of your bean water.
I absolutely did. And now I use a regular cheap drip machine. Is it the mathematical best cup of coffee possible? No. Is it the most genuinely enjoyable? Yes, because I'm not actively working for it. I reclaim the morning.
That's the active stillness the song talks about. It's just living. And I actually have the exact flip side of that story, the performing for perception part.
Ah, the social media trap.
The nature trap. I went on this incredible hike a few years ago. Beautiful, dense trail, hidden waterfalls, old growth forest. The air literally smelled like fresh pine and ancient dirt.
Sounds very Lagom.
It should have been. But I spent the entire 4-hour hike obsessively trying to get the perfect photo of myself looking candidly adventurous.
Let me guess. The looking thoughtfully away from the camera while casually laughing at a leaf pose.
Yes. Oh, I didn't see you there. I was just deeply communing with this vibrant moss pose. And I got the photo. It was technically a great photo. The golden hour lighting was perfect. It got a lot of likes and comments. But when I got home later that night and looked at it on my screen, I had this massive sinking feeling in my chest.
The emptiness of the performance.
I realized I couldn't actually remember what the real forest sounded like. I couldn't remember if there were birds singing or if the wind was blowing. I had processed that entire profound reality purely through a digital lens meant for other people.
You missed the hike.
I wasn't hiking. I was on an unpaid location scout for my own fake personal brand.
You were playing the game, but you weren't actually an active player. You were basically an NPC in your own life,
Yeah.
performing complex routines for an audience that wasn't even physically there.
Exactly. It was a complete simulacrum of a hike. And that's where the active stillness lyric really hits hard. The song asks, isn't real freedom in your own set of laws?
Active stillness is such an interesting and powerful phrase. It heavily implies intention. It's not just being lazy or giving up. It's actively choosing to stop. It takes immense mental effort to consciously stop the momentum of the hedonic treadmill.
It's essentially meditation for people who refuse to buy the $500 organic buckwheat cushion.
I have another friend who obsessively tracks his sleep. He has the smart ring. He has the connected watch. He even bought the biometric mattress pad. 3 completely different, highly expensive trackers gathering his sleep data every single night.
That sounds incredibly restful. Nothing quite like sleeping in a sterile laboratory environment.
He wakes up, he generally feels fine, he stretches. Then he immediately checks his phone screen. If the aggregate app tells him his recovery score is only 42%, his actual mood instantly tanks.
He lets the app tell him how he feels.
Completely. Yeah. He logically decides he is tired. He starts acting physically tired. He gets incredibly grumpy with everyone. He will actually cancel his heavy gym session based purely on that number.
He is literally outsourcing his own internal body sensation to an arbitrary algorithm.
Precisely. He blindly trusts the code way more than his own central nervous system. That is the exact opposite of your own set of laws. He has completely surrendered his personal autonomy to a tiny silicone sensor.
This is exactly why I say, just living is the real rebellion right now. Stop measuring everything. Stop weighing everything. Just be. If you feel good when you wake up, you are good. Screw the data.
Which naturally brings us to the bridge and the outro of the track. The quiet revolution.
Oh man, the lyrics go, contentment isn't settling. It's quiet revolution most don't recognize. To look at what you have and not apologize.
And not apologize. That is the absolutely critical key phrase for me.
Why do we always feel this intense need to apologize for having an older car? Or living in a smaller house, or for not having a lucrative side hustle? Why is saying I have a regular job and I go home at 5 seen as a moral failure?
Because the pervasive cultural narrative is that continuous exponential growth is inherently moral. If you aren't constantly growing, you are actively rotting. That is the core biological imperative of modern capitalism.
Right.
Public companies literally must grow every single quarter, or they fail. So we are rigidly taught that as human beings, we must also grow every single quarter. Saying, I am perfectly good right here is terrifying to the system. It's seen as dangerous stagnation.
But Hush Density frames that exact stagnation as punk rock. Standing completely still in a screaming, chaotic world is the most aggressive, rebellious thing you can possibly do. It's looking the system in the eye and saying, I am not playing your game anymore.
It all comes back to the practical finances for me. I consciously decided not to upgrade my car last year.
A sedan.
Yeah. It has a visible dent on the door. It has over 100,000 miles on the odometer. The clear coat paint is definitely fading on the roof.
It has character. Don't let anyone tell you different. It has grit.
But I sat down and looked at the average monthly payments for a brand new one. $600 or maybe $700 a month. And I looked at my fully paid off dented car in the driveway, and I realized something profound.
What's that?
The revelation they sing about. It actually feels exactly like having an extra $700 a month accumulating in my bank account. That buys a massive amount of real freedom.
And absolutely zero anxiety about accidentally scratching the pristine new paint at the grocery store.
Exactly. Yeah. The absolute best subscription service in the world is the one you finally cancel.
I had a moment of clarity kind of like this recently. A very rare moment of complete zen for me. I was sitting in a cafe watching the financial business news on the TV. And I was eating a sandwich. Really pretty good sandwich, actually. Turkey Swiss, nice spicy brown mustard on perfectly toasted sourdough.
Crucial details for the record.
They matter. And on the screen, they were interviewing this massive tech billionaire. I won't name names.
No.
But he looked so stressed.
They always do.
He looked like he legitimately hadn't slept in a full week. His eyes were darting around the room. He was visibly sweating. He was basically panicking on live television about a 2% dip in his stock price or a new DOJ antitrust investigation or something.
The heavy golden handcuffs.
And I looked up at him on the screen and I took a massive bite of my turkey sandwich and I clearly thought, I am winning right now.
You were.
In this specific precise second of time, my actual quality of life delicious sandwich in hand, sitting on a comfortable couch with 0 pending lawsuits and 0 angry board members yelling at me is objectively higher than his.
That is the glitch. You successfully saw the code. You fully realize that the massive arbitrary score on the screen, the billions of digital dollars, didn't actually match the real human feeling in the room.
But the song ends with some serious ambiguity. It really doesn't let us off the hook that easily. The outro says, the code is still running. More, less, still just noise. So do you see the code?
It intentionally leaves it open. It doesn't arrogantly promise that you will permanently escape. It just gently asks if you currently can. The algorithm is still constantly running in the background. The feed is still scrolling forever.
Usually when I try to consciously see the code at 2 a.m. while doom scrolling, I just get a massive 404 purpose not found error in my brain.
The literal blue screen of death of the human soul.
But it's a totally valid question. Are you going to actively log out? Or are you just going to smugly switch from playing the more game to playing the less game? Are you going to proudly trade the luxury yacht for the bare wooden floor and genuinely think you've won the whole game?
I think the real practical takeaway here, the solid common ground we can definitely find, is that you shouldn't let anyone ever sell you happiness as a packaged aesthetic. Whether they are loudly selling it in the form of a 200-foot yacht or quietly selling it as a bare floor with a single ethically sourced beeswax candle.
Because happiness isn't a product you can buy, it's a byproduct.
It's a byproduct of Lagom, of actively finding that sustainable balance, of tuning your personal engine to the exact right RPM for your specific life.
My Lagom is ordering a massive, greasy pepperoni pizza on a Friday night, eating 3 huge slices while watching a terrible movie and not feeling a single ounce of shame or guilt.
That sounds perfect.
That is my spiritual peak. That is my absolute nirvana.
And that is a highly valid summit to reach.
Okay, we really need to know where the listeners stand on all of this, because we've been arguing back and forth about these extremes, but we need to know which specific ghost haunts you the most.
We have a live poll up on Spotify right now. I'm going to read the question exactly word for word as it is in the source.
Go for it. Put them to the ultimate test.
The question is, which extreme haunts you the most?
Okay, give us the options.
Option 1, the cult of more. I need more money, success stuff.
Are you on that treadmill right now, sweating it out?
Or option 2, the cult of Lagom. Guilt that I'm not simple or spiritual enough.
Do you feel deep shame for owning a couch? Do you want to sell your comfortable bed?
And hopefully, option 3, Team Lagom. I'm good. I have enough.
I am drinking the coffee without weighing the beans. If you are listening on the Spotify app, you can vote right there, right now. Go do it immediately. We really want to see the real numbers on this. We want to know if we have more exhausted billionaires or more starving monks in the audience.
And if you are listening on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else, we still really want to hear from you. The interactive poll might be a Spotify feature, but the conversation is entirely universal. Leave a comment below. Tell us your tragic USB cable story or your terrifying 5 a.m. club nightmare.
Tell us about the exact time you intensely tried to optimize your entire life and accidentally completely ruined it instead. We absolutely love those stories. They make us feel so much better about our own chaotic, messy lives.
We really do read them all.
This has been a wild trip today. Hush, Density the Glitch. It's not just a track, it's a full-blown intervention.
It certainly made me rethink my entire spreadsheet organization system. Maybe I'll actually delete a few rows today. Maybe I'll just sit and look out the window.
Don't get crazy now. Small, sustainable steps.
Thanks for listening to Unpacking the Track.
Catch you in the next one. Don't let the code win.